get actually into the orientation, this is orientation in itself, you're experiencing some of the, as you come in, they're trying to find an open queue. Now, we've decided to put like little green slips on the open queues, and we have closed, the new signs will be saying closed for social distancing. We just think it sounds a little nicer than just closed. The closed for social distancing will be on the sheets you see now on the closed pews. You'll notice the pews across from each other will be staggered. That's intentional, so that there is a little bit more distance all the way down as well. So again, we would encourage that as worship host. It's every third pew is open, and we'll probably have like a little green slip on those just so that people feel when they look, they see our book, but it's okay. We want people to be comfortable. But that's why the worship hosts are so important, that you provide us with that kind of guidance. People want to come to worship, not sure where to sit. Now, where a couple folks are sitting right now, you notice you're on the ends. It's okay. We wonderful this time on very long pews. When we come to actually being worshiping on Sunday morning, it will be our intent. It will be our intent to reserve the center pews basically around the inside sections, around the pillars for larger families. We're saying 4 or more. Because you can see that if you look at Julie and David, you got a whole pew, in essence, almost empty, that could have 3, 4, 4, or 5 people. We're discouraging moving to the center. We try to measure that out. If somebody sits in the center and you try to go 6 feet on either side of the person in the center, you pretty well have taken up the pew, and it doesn't work. So when people come to be seated and you'll be hosting them, you'll just be encouraging to sit on the ends of open pews. And then we'll try to reserve, we probably have like a little reserve sign on those longer pews. Generally it's just 2 pews on either side. And of course on both ends we have to have the signs. And those signs will simply say, please reserve for larger families, because that's fine. Now the question always happens, and we found that at the memorial service too, if friends want to sit together, that's their choice, okay? In other words, we plan to see families. They usually feel real safe and they want to sit together. So that's generally our format. But sometimes individuals will come with other individuals, or they choose to sit with friends, and that's their choice. We're not trying to mandate you can't sit with your friends. So again, the idea is almost like we're doing right now. We would anticipate, of course, couples, and 3 or family, or 4 or 5 or family, and we would discourage you moving to the center of any of the pews, because once you're at the center, you kind of block the ends a little bit from people being able to sit. It's a courteous thing to do. It's a natural thing that we do. We move toward the center, but because of the social distancing, it works against us. So we'll kind of try to remember that so that people can sit on the ends and not on the inside. Okay, we have a little presentation put together, and then at the end of it, we'll ask questions. We know you'll have some, and then we'll talk about how we might move forward. Thank you all for being here. This is wonderful. We're very happy to have you here. Right now, our planning is somewhat located in our future directions ministry team, meaning we're trying to implement the plan, a comprehensive plan that the council put together. That kind of fell to the future directions team. At some point in time, this program will probably become part of the worship and music team. It will be worship team leaders, will be worship leaders. But for right now, we're doing our educating and everything as part of the future directions ministry. Okay, our first slide. Our next first slide. Oh, do I do that? Yeah. Wow. I don't know if I have to get this. How do I do it? Where do I aim? Oh, great. That's it. Success. I haven't done that before. A new experience in my last month. Wow. I sent to you a copy of a portion of the comprehensive plan. The part was called Phase 1. The comprehensive plan was a bit longer than that. The first part of the plan, actually, the council was looking at the present time. I mean, we actually were doing things 3 months ago, or 4 months ago, when we entered into this. And so initially, we had part of the plan that had to do with right now. What are we doing right now? But now we're planning from the right now experience, which we're still in, we're moving to phase 1, which is inviting people back to worship inside the sanctuary. That also includes, as part of phase 1, the opportunity for maybe some more gatherings of meeting groups in various places that are big enough. Right now, the fellowship hall is where some small groups are meeting. Bible studies meeting in the fellowship hall right now. The conference room is enough 4 people or 5 people to be socially distanced properly. So it's not available to us like it used to be for 13 or 14 people. If we have a group of 4 or 5, we can think about the conference room. The sanctuary becomes a potential meeting spot. If we know in advance, everything has to be in advance, and then we can look at reserving it. Because you see how the seating has to always somewhat maintain this social distancing for us to do this safely. Our number one goal in this whole plan that you see up there is to ensure a high degree of public health and safety here at this church. So our commitment is first and foremost to that. So that would be our first plan to do that. The second thing that we began in this particular part of the plan was to, in fact, begin on-site worship again. As part of phase 1, we would like to have folks be able to return in some form to worship in the sanctuary. Now, we already did that to some extent with outside worship services, and we'll continue to have some outside services. It's in our plan, but we will becoming inside. Now, we almost had a test run, and we'll get some information about that. We had Mr. Blaine's funeral, Mr. B's funeral, and we didn't know what to expect. I mean, we knew it could be a very large crowd, but we were encouraging people to consider live streaming the service and family and close friends. Well, even with all of that messaging, went out to the school and to the church, and I think fortunately we didn't have many kids coming, but we had over 70 people. So we had people, as you're seated here, we had 2 or 3 family units on the end of every pew. And thank goodness we had Kristen and David here, who sort of served as initial worship hosts and provided people guidance. And they didn't need guidance. So many of them were not even members of the church. So that was very important. Okay. We'll be doing 2 services, 8:30 and 10:30. That helps to ensure the distancing we need, because we can't handle at any one service anywhere near what we were worshiping prior to the coming of the virus. And so not that we expect us to resume that number right off the bat, but we hope that with 2 services we can grow towards that number combined. And in other words, we feel, it all depends on the family size, of course, but we're looking at between 60 to 75 fairly okay on the empty pews. If we use all the open pews, and we're sitting on a couple or individual or family at the end of every open pew, we can do about 60, 70, maybe 75 people. It depends on the size. If you got 4 or 5 seater, it changes the number. So that's what we're looking at. So therefore, you can see we were worshiping almost 150. We obviously need 2 services to be able to bring even close to 150 people back to campus. We haven't figured this out, but we are talking about having some form of indicator of which service you're trying to come to help us plan. We're not going to the point, some congregations are doing reservations only. We're feeling that kind of feels a little to us, maybe a little too harsh, but we do feel an indicator would be helpful. So somehow we're going to try to set up something where people can say, I tried to come outside the 8, I tried to come to the 8:30 service or the 10:30, and that would help give us guidance to know what to expect. Right now, we do not know. Just like when we did the memorial service, we had no idea what to expect until people started arriving. Now we did do all the safety precautions, so in essence we were prepared, except it was larger number than we expected. We will be continuing to offer communion to both those who are on site on Communion Sunday and those who are at home. We will continue to be live streaming right on through. Is our intent to keep on live streaming the 8:30 service. And as we do that live streaming, once it's been live streamed, it's now available to any worshiper any time throughout the morning or later in the afternoon or another day if they wish. So we will be live streaming the 8:30 in the morning services that you see on this schedule here. And then that becomes available to anybody who wishes to worship anytime at home at their convenience. Because it'll be on our website or YouTube, and you can go and click on it and watch the service. But on those Sundays, we will be having communion. That's pretty much going to be handled by pastors and assistant or two at the portico also. It's like we're distributing for those who are worshiping with us, and then we also distribute to others who might come by way of whatever, car, bicycle, or golf cart. And last week I said we had a family was pushing a stroller. That came through, and with the two kids, and they were walking out for a walk, and they did communion that way. So that's a wonderful way to do it, and we'll continue to have that available to home viewers so they can participate in communion. It seems almost everybody is getting out in their cars to some degree now, and it feels safe driving through and receiving communion being dropped basically into their hands in their car, and then receiving the rest of the morning. We are looking already through spiritual directions to on-site and online educational opportunities. Initially, many of them will be online. And so we're looking at a Bible study class that will start, I believe, on the second Sunday of September, the 13th, directed by David Johnson, and it will be online, and it will go begin at 10:45. And it will go until 11:45. Anybody participating in that could have already done the 8:30 service, or when they finish the Bible study, they can go to our website, click, and the service would begin whenever time they do their clicking. So it's not time constrained that we have to be out of it by 10:30. Are you understanding that? We hope to have some children at some point doing that. So yes, please.
How will you be able to be one of the ushers helping and also do that class? And you'll be able to get home in time or get here in time? How's that going to work?
How's what now?
How is it going to work to try to get do that class and be one of the ushers for either one of the services? Will you be able to get home in time? I don't think so. Maybe do it.
Oh, I see. Yeah, it's going to be kind of hard for the worship leader on that. I hear you now. It's going to be a little bit hard for a worship leader participant here to. We think that people who are worshiping can get home. That was the idea of 15 minutes to give you time to get home. Our services are not going exactly an hour for the class, so we think the worshipers will have time. But I get your question. A worship leader, we hope you will stay and help us do some of the tasks that need to get done. So whoever is worshiping on a particular Sunday might have to miss that Bible class or show up late for it. Yeah, good question. Okay. We also are beginning some small groups, talking about small groups coming out of the youth ministry, or doing some conversations about how to safely bring folks together for activities. They're doing a lot of online stuff. Kids are enjoying it, responding well to it. But we're looking at family kinds of activities too. We're going to get creative. We are living in a new kind of a time, and it's also an opportunity, for us to strike out in some new ways. In how we pull families together, maybe for some activities. Kristen's already thinking about that, as is your committee on the youth and family ministry team. I'm thinking some ideas. And I think our children's education team is also thinking of some ideas. How do we do this? Because we're not going to do nursery. That's part of we're not going to have a nursery service. We don't want to have the responsibility of the safety of other people's kids when it's very hard to keep masks on children, and it's hard to come on. So we're not going to have a nursery initially, and for a while we probably will not have any kind of gathering of Sunday school kids. Now, at some point in time, we might be real creative and figure out a way to safely do that in a fellowship hall or somewhere. And when that idea comes, we'll publicize it to the church. Okay. And then we mainly with Chris, Dave, and others, one of our goals is to realize that this is very much the life we will be living into the future. And so we need to continue to develop our capabilities of doing audio and visual kinds of presentations and experiences so that home viewers and people in other places can also participate in such things. So our intent is to have another camera. We've been focusing basically to the one camera, and our intent is that we will, when worship resumes, we'll be going back to orientation to the whole sanctuary, and there will be a stronger camera guiding us in the area where Chris is, and then we may find a home for this camera as an alternative place for viewing. Okay, but the larger camera will be able to pick up the pulpit. So far, we've just been kind of hanging out in this area in a line of fire, right straight through here, and doing the best we could with one small lens camera. Now we're hoping to expand that capability. And I think the church as a whole, and with Chris' guidance and others in the council, needs our operations board, they need to continue to look how can we really, develop this. At some point, we probably will need remote control cameras. It's going to be the future of most churches. Some churches already have that capacity, and that would be mounted cameras like on the post, for instance, that you actually can shape and turn it and zoom it from the place where Chris is sitting. Now that's the future, but if somebody ever gives a very large memorial gift, that might just be a very good idea. Right, Chris? To be thinking about that kind of capacity for future worship. I think we'll be live streaming for a very long time. Okay, we'll be having on-site worship, but there will always be those who feel safer to be at home. There's always those who may not feel well on a particular site and don't want to be out in the public. So we are now able to include them in the whole worship service. That's the neat thing about what we're doing now. That's a bonus and a plus. So that's kind of some of the, I gave you again a little bit more detailed information. I do have paper copies of that. That is the phase one. I didn't want you to necessarily have them right now. You don't need to be reading through those. I did send it to you as an attachment. But if you want a paper copy or a copy, in case folks would like to take it with them as well. Chris, just want to say a few words about who you are, what you are. Okay?
All right.
And I guess you want me to figure out this here. There you go.
More earrings done.
Time.
All right. Thanks, everyone. Yeah, future directions under Paul has been working on this, so appreciate you guys all being out here. I think this is the way, instead of how we've normally done it with ushers and greeters, this host position, it's going to really help us. Can you hear me now? All right, what is a worship host? So instead of an usher and greeter that we're normally familiar with, we're having this group of folks who are going to help us serve the congregation in new ways that we need, mainly showing everyone where to sit and help with some of the protocols afterwards. Okay, on-site gathering. So the most important thing is that we're going to communicate this with everyone, is that when you come here, we need you to wear masks. So we'll have masks available, but that'll be kind of one of the first things as a worship host. You'll make sure everyone coming in has a mask. We need that.
We'll have extras available.
There are 6 entrances to the sanctuary. We're only going to open 3. So we'll have the coffee patio doors open, the doors that lead out to the point here, and then the doors over by the nursery and youth room. Those will remain all the way open. So as a host, you're going to come in and you're going to open those. It's going to seem like a giant waste of AC, but we're just going to keep them open for a while. And then 5 minutes after the service starts, we'll close those doors. So no one needs to be touching the door. And then your job is really to be welcoming folk and to answer their questions about where to sit. And I think that'll be the biggest question. We'll do as much as we can to communicate that ahead of time, but everyone will come in and wonder, where do I go? So we'll have our signs here. I'll show you a map that'll make it a little easier visually to look at, but we'll have, like Pastor mentioned, pews that are closed. We're going to discourage any congregating. We moved all of the furniture out of the narthex. So as people are coming in, you're going to be asking them to just move directly to the pews. And then any conversations they want to have before or after kind of need to occur outside to maintain that social distancing. So here's our sanctuary. We have aisles A through E here labeled just for you guys to understand with these two main sections here for larger families. Every third pew will be open. And then after the first service, the worship clothes that are right there at the 8:30 service will just simply help us by shifting those closed signs up one pew. So between the 8:30 and the 10:30 service, no one is sitting in the same pew. Here's just a diagram for how we're going to stagger the open and closed seating, having every third pew open. Okay, duties. So before worship, you would just come and put your mask on and prop open the doors, keep those open. Welcome everyone. And then answer any questions. I think there'll be questions probably about what do I do with my offering, or are the restrooms open, or things like that. Where do I sit? You'll notice at the table there, when you walk in on the entrances here, we will have masks and we will have a little basket for the offering. We won't be collecting offering during the service. The bathrooms will be open. We're just going to encourage everyone to have a mask. If they don't have one, offer them one. And then just, to remind everyone, we're going to proceed directly to the pews and not congregate for conversations in narthex. And then 5 minutes after the service starts, just go ahead and close the doors, the main doors. These sanctuary doors will remain open during the whole service. So no one's touching the door, opening and closing doors. So these will all stay open. If we hear, families that need to take a little one out, we'll just have to listen to that happy noise. All right, and then following service, we're going to close those doors. Prop open the doors again. So right before service ends, in the last 10, just go ahead, open those doors again. Thank everyone for coming. Just encourage everyone to move out of the narthex to conversations outside. We are discontinuing the coffee service, so conversations will just need to be outside without a coffee service. And then at the 8:30 service, those that are staying for that, just help us to move those signs back so we have that open pew, and then assist us with just wiping things down that have been touched. Mostly we think that will be the aisle, the pew aisles here, maybe handles, the door to the restroom maybe. We're going to turn the water fountains off, so it should be pretty minimal, but you can stay and help us do that. Great. All right.
Thank you. Thank you. How many people are on a team?
Well, that's what we were hoping. Thank you for asking. I hope today we can make some decisions on that as far as how many volunteers. There's two ways to go with the teams. So I can be heard a little better. One way is if a team is saying one morning, or at least part of the team, that way we would do it less often. Okay, if folks are willing. Otherwise, we have to have two teams every Sunday, and that means we've got to do it more often. I'm okay with whatever folks want to do. But if we can have some, at least, or maybe at least one or two, who would stay the whole morning and commit, that would be wonderful, because that provides the continuity. We do want somebody to remain to the end of the later service to open the doors, and so we don't want everybody sneaking out just because they already heard the sermon at the early service. We understand why you might want to do that, but at the same time, we would prefer that you would remember to stay in order to open the doors. Now, the doors are kind of, we are speaking about the exit entrance doors to the church building. Okay, that's important. Number one door, the nursery and the youth area. Okay, that door is kind of, we might call that sort of the back, the back parking lot. I'm not sure how we otherwise define it. Then we have the door right over here, behind that font almost that we have out in the north. That door faces the point. That's door number 2. And then door number 3, is over here at the Coffee Fellowship. And folks who park in that parking lot will be coming, either walking up the steps or the ramp into the sanctuary. Now, we're going to encourage folks to, go to the pew closest to the entrance you come. If you come in door number 1, it would be wonderful if folks would actually just come into, and we talked about it. We haven't really educated this way, but we've talked about it because we think the kids would get a kick out of it, that we would name the aisles. That would be the Antioch. And it was on the road to Antioch that Christians were first called Christians. Okay, so we got Antioch, and then we would have Bethlehem, Calvary, leading right to the cross, Damascus, and then Emmaus, ABCDE, obviously, on the far side. But if folks come in door number 1, it would be wonderful that they would just come in using either Antioch or using the Bethlehem road. That way there'll be less crisscrossing in our place. That's part of what we're trying to avoid. If they come in the point, again, you can see it would be the center doors or Damascus. And if they come in from the door by the Coffee Fellowship, we hope they will either come down this side up or come down the center. Now you have to, worship folks will have to pay attention because it's likely that the center aisle is going to fill up first. The seats, the open pews on the center aisle like it did today. So once that starts to happen, we need to be encouraging folks to go toward the side aisles, and say there are you'll see open pews where you can sit on the ends of pews. Just remind people to sit on the ends of pews and not to slide in. Okay? The temptation is for them to slide to the middle, but that begins to break down the ability for somebody to come at the other end and sit. Okay? Then the entrance to the sanctuary on these doors remain open all through the service. We're not going to close them any longer during worship services. We're just going to have to try to monitor any kind of, hopefully there is not noise, but anything that might be there, we're just going to live with so that the doors are open and people that have to come or go maybe during the worship service do not have to, as you pointed out, Kristen, they don't have to open doors along that way. The outside doors you open 10 minutes before worship. I know it feels like we said, a lot of air conditioning, but it's safe. And then about 5 minutes after worship starts, it's closed the 3 outside doors so that we hold the air conditioner in that. We may get a few late ones after that, but not too many. And then right prior to the end of the service, we'll open them back up again. There are little hooks on those doors that you can hook them and keep the doors open if you haven't done that before. There are hooks that open the doors. Any comments about that part of it? Okay, good. Wearing a mask is going to be important, so we're going to try to have masks available before you give out. We're going to have stations for the cleansing of hands. That's going to be important. So these things we're going to try to encourage safety. And we, again, don't know how the response is going to be initially. Once we start moving into our schedule, we start learning. We learn what to expect, and how many to expect, and which service to expect them. Right now, we don't know that. And so we're living into kind of an unknown. I'm going to invite you to consider signing up. I like the question we had. I'd like to see us, if we had like 5 teams, that would be wonderful. And we could do. There's some folks who are not here who have agreed to serve. So we have a few more than what we have here, but we mainly have what we have here. If we could come up with some teams, and you can see, we sign up. I got spots where you sign up. We sign up for this September. That would be one team, the names of people there. If you must only get one service, you can just kind of make sure you point an arrow only to the 8:30 or only to the 10:30, and we'll know that you are only able to be there. That's still help. It's still help. And we just got to have some other team members who would be there the whole time. We would hope that you could do it every 4th or 5th Sunday. That gives you a lot of flexibility and freedom. Now, this will grow as we begin to see who worships and who comes. We hopefully will be recruiting more worship hosts. And we will have this program available to retrain or to train others in this as well. So that's our goal. Now, just to look at the calendar, I put it up there. It's out into the future. There may be some changes. We have new pastors coming. That's exciting. And so when the new pastors come, they may have some new ideas, and we will be flexible. We're welcome. And so there could be some flexibility. But what I've done is try to just do the dates and Sundays that we kind of expect. The first Sunday in September next week is an outside worship service at 9:30. It's not on here. We can handle that without having the worship host again. We have some folks who have been helping us with those outside service flows, and we'll continue with that next Sunday. But then beginning September 13th, that's the first, that's 2 weeks from today, that will be the first one. And first time that we have on-site worship back in the sanctuary. Again, at 8:30 and 10:30, that'll be our first time to figure this thing out. And we'll probably, like I said, have, what do you call it? How do we survey people?
Survey monkey?
Survey monkey. I knew it was a monkey, but I didn't want to say it wrong. I'm a dinosaur, not a monkey. And so I put all these things. Okay, the survey monkey will be the one we probably will use to kind of get a feel for how people, and it's also a way of communicating and encouraging worship. So at the same time, we're saying, if you don't mind letting us know, we're saying, we hope you will be there and come. And so it will continue to be encouraging worshipers. The second is the first and third Sundays of the month. Our pattern is going to be communion. First and third. Second and fourth and fifth, no communion for a while. It's just that it takes a lot of extra effort right now to do it safely. And so we're going to kind of live into it. I know we used to have communion every Sunday. And we, as Lutherans, we love that. But for now, I think for safety's sake and for us to live into the plan, we will do communion on the first and third Sundays, okay? And then second, as you can see here, this is the second Sunday, the fourth Sunday, and if it happens to be, I think, November 5th Sunday, there would not be a communion unless it's a festival and the new pastors want to make it a communion Sunday, and that's okay too. Okay, so if you sign up on this one, this team, we would have communion. Now, it's going to be rather informal. I'm finding, until we really do understand this well, it's almost better for me to be able to talk to people. Rather than trying to have lots of rules inside the bulletin and make you folks have to have all the rules and direction. What we did was I just said that folks over here will be communing first. Please come down. I'll be right here. I'll be dropping the wafer into your hand. You move over to either receive a wine or you move over to receive the grape juice. When you complete, we're going to have baskets, and Chris is talking about having some hanging right on those two corner pews there where they can drop the glass after they have ate their wafer and then drop that. We no one has to handle the basket with the glasses until after the service. So then when the folks here, we can say, now you folks come down. And then we will all switch up here, and people will come this way, me and the others will go this way. And by these people come down, and then we will do that. Okay? The idea is don't form lines, don't feel pressured or rushed. We'll commune everyone who's here, and we'll take our time doing it, and keep your 6 feet away from each other as best you can. Okay? Even in the line, we try to be 6 feet away from each other ourselves to encourage that. Anything question about the communion? Yes.
You won't have any of the kneeling.
A what?
There won't be any kneeling.
No, I think we're just good because when there's kneeling, there's hands on railings, and then there's more things that we need to be sure that we write down between services, particularly. Over the week, from everything I'm understanding from the health and the Center for Disease Control, is that over the week, things like that pretty well disappear on their own. But from one service to the next, not so much. So that's why we're thinking about from 8:30 till the 10:30 service, we want to try to keep things as simple as possible. That's a good question. So probably nobody, maybe even because of the lines, if they want to go somewhere and just stand, and we're not going to discourage that. Just probably going back to your pew and praying is the better alternative. Back to your seats. That's a good question. Any other question? Just jump in as you're thinking.
Well, I would just say, David and I's experience, I think the biggest hurdle was just people not knowing how or where to sit. So especially the first time someone comes, back, they're going to need help finding someplace to sit. And just like today, this first aisle is the first one to fill up. And so making sure that we do save the longer pews for families or larger parties. And just that natural reaction. I mean, every time you go to a theme park or to the movies, your natural reaction is to move to the center. And you have to avoid that natural, that's just in you to do that, is just to sit on the end, which is hard.
Yeah, I actually think that it may not have been members, but I always pick up a little irritation. First time irritation, the fact of seeing closed pews, when they're trying to come in and find seats for a memorial service, and it all of a sudden seemed like all the pews were closed, and thank goodness, Kristen and David were saying, well, no, we can one here, and one over there, because they were all looking for the center, and they were closed by that point in time. Yes?
So speaking of that, you have people coming in and you just want to sit down and it says closed, and they just decide to sit there anyhow. I'm just asking you, what do we tactfully do?
I think we don't want to, we don't want to, be rude. And so I think we just do everything we can to encourage. We'll probably put a sign on a couple of the longer pews on both ends of those longer pews, because that was a temptation. I mean, we have one little lady sitting down right in the end of one of the long pews on that end, and another person on that end. The longest pew we had, was gone, and we just didn't educate in any way. Now, part of it's going to be.
How do we graciously suggest that they move?
I'm sorry.
How do we graciously suggest that they move?
Good. Well, if you can be ahead of it, is better than moving them, of course. But if they really are saying, "I really want to sit here," then we'll figure it out. We'll figure it out.
Well, you're saying that we're opening the doors 10 minutes before the worship service starts. But that doesn't give us a lot of time to situate everyone. So
no, and the people aren't here like you folks can come. The people come right toward. I think having somebody, one of the hosts sort of in the center aisle, monitoring the center aisle is my greatest concern, honestly. And I think we've got to close those doors once we see that all that pews on the center aisle are taken, whether it's one person or three. Then if one person is in that end, then we hope we get a big group on the other end of that same pew. That would be our goal. If one person sits down on a long pew, then down here where David's seated now, you can maybe put 5 people, you see, moving towards that person. And we want to be loving and gracious. If I have to, I can speak to it. I mean, I feel that's the kind of informality we're going to need to have as we grow into this. And I'll just graciously say part of our social distancing is trying to allow space for larger families to sit together. And it helps us if individuals or couples, or even 3-person families, sit on the ends of the shorter pews. And we want safety, yes.
Should we try to escort them down?
It's not a bad idea, it's just I don't know how much you're going to be able to do with your team. Absolutely, anything you can do to make people feel comfortable and carry, that's a great thing. And we can live into it, and if you folks come up with better ideas and way of doing it, that's what we're going to grow into, and we can come up with quote new guidelines that might help us be smoother at what we do. Like it could be that one person on the team is right here, and just kind of monitoring it all, and that might be. Excuse me. I keep, you can monitor it here. Now I can do a little bit of that, but of course can't do a lot of it. I'll be doing the other parts of the service as well.
I'll say David and I started to do that as the church filled up. It was because people weren't able to find something, so it was just easier to walk with them to help them find a spot than just to say, go this way. It was just easier because people were coming in, close to the time of it starting, so it was just easier to walk with them, especially this section over here was the last section to fill up. And so people that were coming in these doors didn't know to walk around to this entrance, and so it's taking them over to this far door that there was seats over here.
And we had this whole section closed. We just didn't anticipate as many worshipers for the memorial service, and so because of the wires, the camera, and everything, we just kept that whole section closed. So that was several pews that we could have used those ends of some of those pews. And we will do better once we open up for our regular service. Yes.
Just brainstorming, I mean, trying to combine what restaurants are doing as well as airlines. We need more like a maitre d' at the beginning there to help guide as to where they're supposed to go. The airlines, again, they don't want people passing people on the aisles. Would it be a thought to maybe try to fill in from the front back?
It would be wonderful.
Based upon the number of people that they have.
I think it would be wonderful if you could encourage folks to come and sit. Whether they want to sit, that might be, but I agree with you. It would be wonderful, you know, if there is this person who's willing to be sort of an upfront person. When you see people come down, look immediately and say, you know, there's 3 right here, but you know, 2 over here. You know, that's a wonderful thing. It really would help us get us more food. So it may be we just need to consider having one person just watching, and you'll see people coming in each of the doors. Now that door, by the way, we talked about that that door's not going to be open to people coming in. Okay, it's basically it's going to be 4 entrances because they have to go by the booth and everything, and the service leaders are generally right in that area. So that door, which is an outside door, technically, it's not an inside. It's going not to be open. So we're talking still about 3 main outside doors and then the 4 main inside sanctuary doors. Yes.
Are you envisioning 3 people minimum being manning those open doors and then additional team?
No, I don't think there's something. I don't think it's man doors. I think it's just going to open the doors, and that could be one person. I mean, David has very often done all the doors. Once the doors are open, we don't have to man. But it would be helpful if somebody's aware that this part of the hallway is not seen from this part. So having one of the worship posts in this area close to this door here would be helpful.
So the encouragement of masks is, are you envisioning having some stations where the box of masks, like there would be 3 places where.
There are 3 tables with, I'm not sure, right now it's down by, do you think it's better up or down? Right now it's only
I
down.
know it's down in the atrium.
You like it down that far, or do you think it's better to have it up on the, last time it was right here by this door.
I don't know, I think it's down in the atrium.
It is down now, but whichever way, anyway, there is one for this door. And there are masks on, everybody seems to understand that fairly well now. We haven't had too much difficulty. You can see the mask available. They didn't bring one, they just take one. They see the hand up, and they do that without much being told.
So then you're envisioning a minimum of 3 people per service.
Oh, I'd like to see 5 as minimum. You know,
What would the,
like one person in here, somebody out there, somebody over here, and then maybe help with the usher. I just think 5 would be more comfortable, like husband and wife, and people, you know, it could be a youth who's willing to help out. I just think 5 who is kind of helping the modern will be more comfortable. 3, I think, will be running a little too much, you know, and I think 5, I would like to see us sign up with 5 names to start out with. Now, just so I have an indicator from you, I don't know, how many of you would prefer working 1 full morning and then not having it again until another 5 weeks later? Or how many would prefer that? Okay, well, maybe from some of you, we could have leaders for each of our service. That would work. And then how many just prefer one service or the other? Okay. And so if you only have one service or the other, then you let us know which one it is. When you sign up by the 8:30, or you know, it's.
I think too, I would rather just do one, but I could do it more often.
Okay, and then you can just sign up a little bit more often and whatever service can help out. That would be great. Some people prefer, you know, work with 1 week and then don't work with for another 5 weeks. You know, others say, no, you know, I can do it every other week or every third week, whenever you want. I don't mind, but I prefer just one service. I'm okay. We just got to have some continuity. So when we sign up here, hopefully we'll be able to see how it fills out. Do you see the sheet up here? Everybody okay? We have 4 Sundays in October. I put in highlighted, you know, the communion Sundays. There's not a lot of difference on that communion Sunday, other than we will be inviting people to come forward for communion. Now, just so you're aware, on the first Sundays of the month after September, First Sunday of October, in November, the first service, the 8:30 service, is an outdoor service. Beginning in October and November, supposedly going on into the year, if the new pastors desire to, because there were a lot of people who wanted an outside service to continue. So we decided to try to continue an outside service at 8:30, the 8:30 service only, on the first Sundays of the month. So it's an outside service and it's a community Sunday. In fact, we've been doing pretty much outside services right now. Yes, somebody had a question. Yes.
Just more on that, for the quilting team. I know that when we came in, waiting for the sign to be on the seats was a little bit difficult, but if the quilting team can maybe a red, green drape over on visual.
Oh, Lord, if you guys could come up with something like that, I have gone to craft stores, I have gone to hardware stores, I have gone everywhere trying to find something that is nice to go over. If we could get with the green, it would be wonderful. In other words, so people could see a green thing over the end of the view.
One in the center.
Oh, man, that would be wonderful. You just gotta do 2 for a pew. And, open pews is about 30 pews or better. There's 60, I think, closed and 30 open.
We can see that from the back.
That would be great. I had looked at things that could go down and be there. And, I've even looked at the flower shop's floor. You know, they have things that they always supposed to hold flower. And, didn't seem the right thing for us. So that's great. If you guys can think of it, something, red being closed, green being open, it's quite common. So we will probably have these signs that you see right now. They'll be maybe slightly edited, but they will be on all the closed pews. And then we're going to have something. We were just talking about having a green strip thing open to lay on the ends of all the open ones. But something like that would be easier to see without that.
Would it be possible in advance to include on the signage, open 2 to 4?
Yeah, we're trying to figure that out. Right. At least 2 on either side, larger pews. We're trying to say open for, 4 or plus family members. The others, I don't think we have too much problems. Obviously, 3 here, might be a little close there. Not tight, but on the very small, shorter pews. But then obviously, the family would say, we focus on having them do there. And of course, in the second service is, you see, this one will become open, this one will become closed, and you just always have to do it.
One thing that we've been doing over on the school side to
Yeah.
help the kids is there are these, you wouldn't call them transparencies, but things that you could adjust between the early service and the late service, is maybe putting a dock or something so that people would walk down and without having to shop around, they would see the potential for, you could put like 4
I
docks
got
here.
you like that. I heard somebody say something about that. I don't know, so I might have to walk over there and see what they're.
There's a Velcro at the back of them, and they stick onto the fabric,
Oh,
so they
okay.
don't shift around, it's just.
Okay, I'm all for it. You just talk with me, that's your idea. Anything to make it simple for people, possibly you can do it. What they can see and feel. If you have something Velcro, you can stick here and flip over, you can have green, and then you can have red.
We have them all different colors. We
Huh?
have them in the sit spots, we have the children sitting on those spots, and they're all different colors you can get.
Okay, good. Those are good things, and let's see, yes.
Do the hosts still hand out programs or?
There'll be no program, everything will be on overhead. There'll be nothing in the pews, so there's no cleaning of hymnals and pencils and anything like that. Offering plates might be actually at the entrance doors. We're not sure about that, just for safety of the finances. Because the outside tables are further out, and they are out there with for hand sanitizer and whatever. So I think we were talking about maybe being able to put the offering plates inside the sanctuary, but at these 4 doors. Okay, I think we'll come up with some way to put the basket on something there. For offering.
What about the kids' coloring book packets?
Oh, I
I don't know what you call them.
I think parents should bring their own stuff.
Okay,
And I think we need to-
I was just thinking we probably need to tell them that
We need to educate
because some of them are
We have
useful.
to know that.
Yep.
That when family members, they need to bring their own stuff and take their own stuff home with them.
Yeah.
Otherwise, we have to worry about making sure we clean.
Right,
Yes.
otherwise we're sanitizing
One of the
crayons.
safe things.
I got the idea that we're getting them in, we're welcoming them, we're seating them down, we shut the doors after 5 minutes, everything was good. So the dismissal is another story, right?
Yeah, okay, good.
When do we as ushers, or whatever you want to call us, go out and open those doors?
5 minutes before, I mean, you know, when
So
we,
we know 5
it
minutes.
doesn't have to be 5 minutes before, a minute or two when you see us getting toward the benediction. Because I think what we're going to do is to dismiss people, invite people to leave during the singing of the closing hymn. So we'll probably have the dismissal right next to the benediction, and then we'll say, you know, leave, go out, leave at your convenience during the closing hymn by the entrances that you came in, and please go to the parking lots for your conversation. And so it worked at the memorial service almost by accident, and it worked well. And it was, people just started getting up and leaving during, because it's not supposed to be singing. They can hum, but they aren't supposed to be singing out those hymns. So it's pretty much our director of music who does the singing, or another voice with them. So it works to dismiss people almost very to him. So good point. When you see us getting to that closing prayer, to the benediction, just go and push those outside doors back open again and click them down so that people can just see the open door and don't have to open doors.
So the worship host not sit in the sanctuary, we stand in the narthex?
Well, if the seats you want, I mean, you know, of course, but if you see that you can come in, yeah. You're welcome to come in because the doors are open, you know, but if you're having trouble with the seat, but you could probably sit on the end of the pew. If you feel like you can safely sit 6 feet from somebody, you can just kind of scoot someplace and scoot in.
What about on the altar where we sit?
We're planning right now not to do that, but we may move in that direction. Right now, acolytes are just these folks. If you want to do the acolytes, if you want to light candles, you're invited to do it today if you like. We're not going to robe them. We're not going to have them sitting up front. They're not going to help with communion. We'll have just a couple assistants, just trying to minimize, you know, people who are being exposed to communion.
I'll be contacting you for readers and prayer leaders too.
Yeah. Well, once you sign up here, we will see where you're thinking about coming and being present and helping. We might use you for something else. Okay, in other words, we might use you to read a lesson, or we might lead you to do the prayers, or we see what family it is, and we say maybe your son or your daughter can also read or light candles. Yes?
I will not do the reading, I'm sorry, I'm comfortable doing this other one, but I'm not comfortable.
Oh, that's
doing
fine.
it.
Well, no, it has to do. This is
No,
just
no,
saying it. Oh.
There is the, yeah.
No, nobody has to do anything. Absolutely not. This is just, some people who are here are liking to read, and we just combine it up so that you don't have to make 2 Sundays in a row. But if we know one, we know you. But no, we're not going to use worship hosts to do everything. It's just that if you're willing to do something else, we might do it. Okay? Any other questions? I'm sorry.
We just answered one of the big questions, we're like a package deal, so we're gonna offer to come the whole morning, do the prayer reading.
Wow, yeah. Keep still here.
I know. So they-
The other question, the other part of that question was gonna be offering, and how that will work.
The offering place will likely be at 4 inside doors.
Okay.
And we don't take them. People will be invited as they come in, but likely they'll forget coming in, they're going to be more concerned about where they're going to sit and everything. So we're more likely to be telling them as you go out. You know, you'll see the offering place and just drop off. So that you have to go right there, right by that corner, somewhere in the center here, and then one over that corner as well.
Pastor, I just to answer Lynn's question too about where to sit, I think everyone is going to be coming wanting to do the right thing. And I mean, I almost sat in one of you came out and said, Julie, that's not the right one. I think people would be gracious about it because it's new and we're all getting used to it. So.
David did a good bit of that, so did Kristen in that service. Said, if you don't mind, you know, we would like to have, you know, people can sit on this pew at the end. You mind sitting on this pew? And, oh no. So,
People will be open to it.
but if you, I want to say this on bodily warfares. You know? If somebody really said, well, this is Mom. Okay, okay. That's okay.
Do we have like an exclusion for young kids for the masks?
Okay?
We expect real young kids to be wearing a mask.
We're saying everybody wear masks, and we'll have to see what happens with, the parents are getting used to that, the school requires it. But it's the preschool kids, not so much. If we have a preschool, then that's kind of been the rule of thumb in school. In my school folks, am I right?
I have my class wearing one,
Wearing.
5-year-olds. We wear the.
Right, 5 years. How young do they go when they don't have to? Or do the 3-year-olds have to wear
Some
them?
of the boys are not wearing them, the 3s and the 2s are not wearing them. I feel they should, but they're not.
That's what I thought.
We can just use
A lot of places, the 3s and 2s are not wearing, and babies, but otherwise we'll just do the same thing. Okay, any other questions? I'll let you come up and sign up. Please come up and, just kind of indicate whether you're doing the whole morning, what morning you're willing to do. This is going to be fastest to get it out of the way, and then you can see it convenient, and at 5:30 you'll go back. And don't follow that.
Social distancing up there, oh my God.
Oh, no, what is this? Does it matter?
It doesn't matter. We don't have anything.
If you want to copy of that phase 1.
Kristen, are you gonna have that online like that?
We're not using